Hi everybody, welcome back. Yes, I look like absolute garbage, but that's, not really my fault. I need to get some stuff done. Anyways, but we're gonna keep going until I get tired or my boyfriend calls. So, yeah. I got new glasses. Anyway. Hold on, let me figure out how many chapters are left in this book. Okay, so there's really only like 5 more chapters left in the book. But, Chapter 6. It was just as well Tessa hadn't hurried to Wishworld right after the orb had chosen. She hadn't realized just how much she had to do. First, she needed to select a wishling outfit, something that would be comfortable and rugged, she thought, in case she wound up doing something outdoorsy like she hoped. After a star hour or so, she settled on crotch jeans that had a hint of green in the blue material and a tailored button-down shirt with sleeves that could be rolled up easily. Next, she called Jewel to come out and play. She needed to say goodbye. The young Galliope, even in virtual form, seemed to have grown in just that day. How big would she be when Tessa came back from her mission? "I'll be away," she told Jewel, but I'll be thinking of you." In fact, Tessa would be more than away. She'd be moonions of floozes away. Did Jewel understand? And would she miss Tessa too? Quickly, Tessa hollow called Gemma. Can you keep Jewel company while I'm gone?" she asked as Gemma's image hovered in front of her. "Of course," Gemma said. "It will make me feel better too." Tessa gulped. She hadn't gotten used to seeing her sister. Oh my fucking god. Tessa gulped. She'd gotten used to seeing her sister every star day. It made being away from her parents in the farm much easier. "I'll be back before you know it," she said. "In time for dinner?" Gemma asked teasingly. "Oh my stars," said Tessa. "You just gave me a brilliant idea. Gotta go. I have hydrants of things to do." Early the next morning, Tessa was finally ready and she feared, late for her mission. She rushed around on the cosmic transporter, juggling boxes and containers and skirting students. The packages were piled so high she could barely see. "Excuse me," she said again and again, bumping into girls with every step. Right in front of Halo Hall, she pressed past Vivica and Violetta. Vivica snickered to Violetta. What would happen if I accidentally bumped into her right now? Tessa concentrated, using her wish energy manipulation to hold everything together, and she didn't bother to apologize when she accidentally stepped on Vivica's foot. Finally, she reached the flash vertical mover, and she used her nose to press the button. When she got to the top, the door whooshed open. Tessa peered over her packages, saw everyone else already waiting on the deck that stood high above Starland. "What on Starland are you carrying?" Sage asked as the star darlings crowded around, excited. "Just some provisions." Tessa dropped everything at her feet and felt her shimmer flare in her embarrassment. She hadn't realized anyone would think it was strange. Gemma rooted through the pile. "Astra muffins?" she called out. "Garble greens and juju fruits? Star sandwiches with glimmer butter? Juju fruit tarts?" She stopped to count. "A baker's glosin of them." She grinned at her sister. "What didn't you bring, Tessa?" "Didn't have time for breakfast," Tessa said a little defensively. "And what if I don't like the food on Wishworld? I want to be prepared." "Preparation is key to a successful mission," Lady Stella said, joining the group, her eyes twinkling. Then a serious look crossed her face. "Are you prepared, Tessa?" Tessa had gone over everything again and again. She knew the importance of the mission and could rattle off tasks in her sleep. Find her wisher, figure out the wish, keep an eye on the countdown clock, and monitor her energy levels. recite her mirror mantra, the special phrase that would bring her glimmer back when she needed a boost, and figure out her special talent as soon as possible. That would surely help her succeed. Tessa touched her wish pendant, a silvery star brooch, pinned to her collar. I swear to God, Nala, get away from me. Where's the... No! I will throw this. That's what I thought. Okay. Tessa touched her wish pendant, a silvery star brooch pinned to her collar. Yes, Lady Stella, she answered. Now, we will just wait for Lady Cordial to bring your backpack so you can take your provisions, and the Wranglers will capture you a star. Lady Stella moved toward the flash vertical mover to wait for Lady Cordial. As soon as she left the group, the mood changed. A Moogle before, Tessa noted, the girls had been excited for her, same as they always been for the other missions, but now they wore worried expressions. Cassie leaned in close to Tessa. Are you sure you're okay? She asked anxiously. I don't really know what to think. If Lady Stella is working against us, anything could happen. Tessa had been fine. Why did Cassie have to go and say something? Scarlet edged over, and Tessa found herself backing away. She didn't want to feel any more negative energy, not right now before she left for Wishworld. Don't say a word, Scarlet, she commanded. Scarlet nodded mutedly, then reached over to hug Tessa tight. Tessa looked at her in amazement. Then she gazed at Gemma and all the Star Darlings. Suddenly, she didn't want to go. Don't worry about Jewel, Gemma said, squeezing her hand. Or anything here, Cassie forced a smile. Just have a Starmendous mission. Star-crossed I will, Tessa said. She tamped down her apprehension, once again visualizing Professor Margaret Dumar's garden. Star greetings, Lady Cordial stuttered, hurrying up to her, her purple hair escaping from her bun. I have your backpacking keychain, Tessa. Star salutations, Tessa said, reaching to steady Lady Cordial before she tripped over a container of Sparklos. Why is she bringing Sparklos? Okay. Her heart went out to the older starling. Standing next to regal Lady Stella, Lady Cordial seemed even smaller and stoutier than usual. Tessa took the backpack, smiling, then quickly packed her supplies. By then, the Star Wranglers had caught a star. After one last hug from Gemma, Tessa was ready to go. She made sure her backpack was secure and her star zap was within easy reach. Cassie nodded her approval. Good luck, starling, called Lady Cordial. This energy crisis isn't going to fix itself. Then the head of emissions looked stricken and slapped her hand over her mouth. Lady Stella turned to her, her face twisted in shock. Had Tessa heard correctly? The other Star Darlings were staring at the two women, looking very confused indeed. And that's when the Wranglers released Tessa's star into the heavens. She would have to put this possible new information out of her mind and concentrate on the mission. Still, it wasn't going to be easy. Lights and shapes streaked past, a star-mazing mix of heavenly bodies, bright flashes, and colorful beams. Tessa twisted her head this way and that, taking in each new sight until her star zap buzzed, signaling for her final descent. This was it. She recited the wish poem to change her appearance, her shimmer fading into a dull whistling shade. Next, she switched clothes, and in an instant later, tumbled lightly to the ground. Oh, my stars! Tessa had landed on her back and was staring directly at the Wish World sun. It seemed a bit dimmer than the suns of Starland, but still impressive, she thought. She sat up, looking around, and gasped. Farm fields stretched in front of her for what seemed like floozles, with neat rows of crops that resemble lightus and sunbeams. She saw a barn with a galliope-like creature just coming out of its red doors. Maybe her wisher was on that very farm. Let's move the billard to the corner for now, she heard a male whistling shout. It will go on top of this building, but it needs to be out of the way during rush hour. A truck engine revved, and the entire scene moved, revealing crowds of wishlings hurrying along a city street behind it. The farm was just a painting, a giant sign placed on top of a flatbed truck. Now she noticed that there was even writing on it. Visit the You Pick farm where you have fun. Tessa sprang to her feet. She was really on a street corner, not a farm. People rushed around her, not giving her a second glance. Most wishlings wore jackets that matched their pants and skirts, either dark blue or black. Tessa was pleased to see her button-down shirt fit right in. Big meeting, one wishling was saying into her cell phone. Tessa couldn't help staring. The phone looked like an early Stars app knockoff, but much more primitive. Today was the worst day to oversleep, the wishling went on. Gotta go. I'm late. Everyone seemed to be heading toward a cluster of tall office buildings. Nala? Get! I have one more! Okay, There wasn't a young wishling in sight, and Tessa highly doubted her wisher was one of the office workers. Busyness, people. Literally. Busyness. Professor Margaret Dumar had called them, and Tessa agreed. They all looked very busy and harried. Feeling uncomfortable, Tessa wondered why she had been chosen for that mission. She was definitely out of her element. There were concrete sidewalks, there were hardly any trees, and she was about as far from a farm as a starling could get. At least 30 miles away, according to the billboard, whatever that meant. Somewhere, a bell rang 9 times, and everyone walked even faster. Then, like magic, the street emptied. The only people left were Tessa and the 2 billboard workers. Tessa glanced around and noticed a street sign. Commerce Street. Of course, Tessa almost laughed at herself. Distracted by the hustle and bustle, she'd forgotten how simple locating her wisher could be. All she had to do was check her stars out for directions. Following the route on the screen map, Tessa took the next left, walked 2 more blocks, and found herself on a quiet street. 2 more blocks. She walked toward a small brick building set back from the sidewalk. It looked a bit like the school building she had seen through a Wish World surveillance deck telescope. But there wasn't a school. A sign in front of a yard read, Hillsborough Animal Shelter. Tessa's heart skipped a beat. Animal? She read out loud, just to make sure. This might even be better than a farm. A wide smile spread across her face. She knew the word animal meant a creature of some sort, hopefully friendly, like all creatures on Starland. And shelter meant to protect. Oh my god. Animal shelter. It was an awfully big place to protect just one creature, she thought. Even if it was the smallest building she had seen so far. But maybe the animal was huge. As big as a house. Why? Okay. She'd read about one creature called a smellephant, so named because of its long, stretched-out nose, which could bend and curve and even pick up objects. She paused. Maybe the creature was dangerous. The word shelter might mean protection from, not for, an animal. The building could provide a safe place for wishlings. Tessa glanced anxiously down the street. She willed herself to think positive thoughts. Once again, she called up the garden vision, and she added a few glober beams for good measure. Her heartbeat slowed. She felt calmer. Of course, there were no dangerous animals there. Tessa had been star-crazed. She was in a small city after all. There wouldn't be wild animals roaming the streets. Even in Starland City, you couldn't find a lion or a twinklelope wandering around the transporters. Feeling better, Tessa walked up the building's path and stopped at the double glass doors. She tried peering in but couldn't make out much. So taking a deep breath, she stepped inside and entered a lobby with a desk facing the entrance. There wasn't a creature in sight, or a wishling for that matter. Tessa wandered to a wall covered with flat, unmoving pictures. Wishling photographs, she knew. The photos featured wishling creatures, some cuddling with children, some with adults, all adorable, and none as big as a house. In fact, most of them were quite small. Tessa had taken every wishling creature class she could back home, and had gotten an eye in every one, so she was familiar with many of the animals. but they looked different here than in hollow artist renderings and much clearer than from the Wish World surveillance deck. Her heart expanded as she looked at the animals, probably all in need, she realized, cats and dogs and others she didn't recognize. One was a long, sleek creature that looked like a striped tube. It had no legs, and its head was part of its body. Tessa shivered, but right next to the creature was a picture of a tiny, adorable animal, a ball of fur with big round cheeks and a small nose, running on some sort of wheel. Next to the picture wall was a table piled high with sales items labeled doggy treats and cat toys. To the side stood a big jar filled with flat, round silver objects. Tessa read the sign on it. Donations appreciated. All proceeds benefit the shelter. Just then, a woman walked briskly into the lobby from a hallway off to the side. She bent over the desk, flipping over a large book. The book is made from paper, Tessa thought excitedly. May I help you, dear? The woman asked Tessa. She had short, wavy gray hair, and when she smiled at Tessa, her eyes crinkled in a friendly way. The woman had called her dear. Did she actually think Tessa was a wishling creature that lived in the woods? Confused, Tessa just stood there for a moment. The woman gazed at her patiently, and finally, Tessa stepped closer. The woman nodded encouragingly. Our receptionist isn't here, she explained, but you must be one of the students who are volunteering this summer. Since this is the first week of our program, we haven't figured out schedules or responsibilities yet. She held out her hand. My name is Penny Lore. I am the director here. Please call me Penny. What is your name, dear? I'll check you off the list. Tessa tapped the woman's fingers in what she hoped was the correct wishling way. Student volunteer, she thought quickly. Summer program. Summer was a season, similar to the time of Lumiere, the warmest part of the star year. Did wishlings have a school break then? And had lots signed up to help at the shelter? It sounded like it, she decided, so this was definitely the place she'd meet her wisher. Plus, she was talking to the director, the head of the program. That was a stroke of luck. Tessa smiled at Penny. She concentrated hard, blocking out all distracting thoughts, and said, My name is Tessa. I did sign up to volunteer. I'm not on the list, but it doesn't matter. Penny sniffed the air. A dreamy expression crossed her face. Your name is Tessa, she repeated. It doesn't matter that you're not on the list. She scribbled in the book, then looked up. Do you smell that too? She asked Tessa. Someone nearby must be baking my favorite pastry, raisin cinnamon buns. I had one every morning for breakfast growing up. Tessa grinned. The mind control trick really was star-amazing. Too bad it only worked on adults. I'm so sorry I'm late, Penny, another woman said, hurrying into the lobby. She pinned a name tag, Donna, onto her shirt, also buttoned down, Tessa noted. I can take over now. That's okay, said Penny. This is Tessa, one of our summer volunteers. I'll take her in the back and get her started. Tessa still wasn't entirely sure what the shelter did, but it looked like she had a job. Chapter 7! We're nearing the end, guys. Then we can start moving on to the final 3 books. I mean, technically final 3 in the main series, because there's 2 others! Okay. I will see you guys next time.